Hey, it's Zeeack, and bonds are a key item to hold in order to make a few million or just keep up with game inflation. As players progress their accounts, it's inevitable that at the end you will have some spare change. This extra wealth is held by players in a few ways: rare items, item stockpiles for long-term investments, raw GP, and bonds. We also can't overlook players who use their extra GP for item flipping. In this video, I want to focus on why bonds are a good investment. In a recent video of mine, I was showing off about 6 bonds unintentionally. When I was explaining the fact that I held some wealth in bonds, some of you were interested. First, I need to talk about the methods of obtaining bonds for any new players out there. Bonds are obtained in 2 ways. First is using real money and buying them from Jagex directly. However, this is not what we will be looking at right now. We are focused on the second way, which is buying them off other players in the grand exchange. When you buy a bond from another player or the GE, you'll notice that the bond is untradeable. However, you can convert this again to make it tradable. It will only cost you 10% of the GE price to do so. For example, if the GE price is 50 million, it will cost you 5 million in order to make it tradable again. This wealth accumulation method really works off the laws of supply and demand. Bond prices are always fluctuating, but there is an underlying trend of steady price increases. Let me give you a look into my personal data sheets that I use to track bonds and their trends. Before I do so, I need to provide a disclaimer. The information in this video reflects an opinion and is for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be investment advice. Seek a duly licensed professional for investment advice. Hopefully some of you work in the financial investment industry and understand that joke. Here we are. My data sheets. As you can see, it's a little bit cluttered, right? The data is not too insane. We're really looking at the low and the high prices. So I've chunked this down in a couple bite-sized pieces. Let's first take a look at the price over time. What's really important here is to understand the high and low price trends. All this data is from 2016 to 2022. Now it's not fully complete because we only have the low price of 2022 as it stands today. I'm assuming in the next few months, we'll be able to actually see the high point and be able to get the final year's results. So as you can see from the high price and the low price, it's continuously showing a pretty standard trend upwards. You can see the gap in here, right, is pretty standard as well. So I'm just trying to point out the fact that these trends here of the last 6 years have been pretty consistent, with again 2021 being kind of an oddball. I'll kind of cover that in just a little bit. As you can see here, there's always this ladder effect. This really gives us a clear view of there's a pristine buy point and a pristine sell point, and we actually have a window into that time period. And I will get into that a little bit later into the video as well. Every single year you can see, here's 2017, we have a low point, high point, low point, high point. And these all happen around the same time period. From 2021, from the low point here to the high point is pretty significant. And we need to keep into consideration the fact of the golden party hats. That really kind of threw the whole bond situation for a loop. We do have some inflation, which I'm going to talk about as well, which I do think is playing into this. My speculation is this trend is going to continue. We're just going to see a big spike because of a huge increase of inflation in a really short period of time. Covering some of these as well. This is the low price year over year percentage increase. This is pretty consistent. And the reason I wanted to put this in here is you can see year over year, we're seeing about 25% increase, 23% increase, 31% increase. This year here in 2020 was a little bit of an outlier, and I'll show that in the data as well. We actually had some deflation according to bonds if we're using that as a staple to indicate what our baseline is. You can see we're really staying between 20 and 30% with, again, a huge spike. So what I'm trying to say here is bonds can be used to kind of indicate what the economy is doing. And when we had that huge spike, you can see that in the trend and the price of bonds. Now, when you look at the high price percentage increase year over year, again, you're seeing pretty steady growth. You're seeing 21 to 16, 25 to that other weird year in 2020. And again, at 88. So you can see that these numbers are pretty stable. And you can see over time when you add it, because again, these are considering the low prices of the previous year to the new year. This is the high price of the previous year to the new year. Now, when you look at a given window in a 1 year period, the low price to the high price, you can see that we get some pretty significant increases. So if you bought low, for example, in 2016, and you sold high, it's a 69% increase. And you can see 65, 56, 49. And this is where you can see a steady trend downwards. Now, this does not mean that the price of bonds are going down. Again, this is the gap between the low and the high. So we're seeing this shrink a little bit over time with, again, that 1 weird year. So we're not going to take that into effect. All right, I want to go over that as I go into the profit simulation. Oh, but that wasn't supposed to be here. Oh, my mouse batteries just died. Oh, guys, hold on as I fix this. Just you can read whatever's on the screen there, and I guess possibly subscribe. Otherwise, you're admitting that you really don't like RS3 and that you feel old school RuneScape is a lot better. So keep that in consideration. All right, got batteries now. Okay, here we go. Profits. This is where we're going to actually be able to see the return on investment. Year over year, you can again see this decrease. Now, what's important about this graph versus the other one, I'm taking into consideration the 10% that you need to spend to make that bond tradable again. So all of these prices and all of these data points right here are considering the fact that you purchased the bond and you've spent money to make them tradable again. So what you can see here is it does have a steady decrease, but the trend line is going up because of this weird outlier. However, what I'm going to tell you right now is when you average these all out, it's 53% returns, which is not bad. When you can take into consideration those other graphs, I think you can use bonds to really represent the inflation, and we're not inflating at 53%. So you're always still going to have an increase here, right? So wanted to go over here and actually give a couple simulations of what I mean and why this is a good investment and why you're only going to make a few million, but the fact that it protects your account against in-game inflation. Here's our price simulation from 2016 to 2022. Using 10 bonds as an investment, it's 104 million invested. Again, keep in consideration, this is with us buying the bond and paying to make it converted. If we sold at the high point, we end up with 161 million. Now, to the naked eye, this is going to look like you made 56 mil, but we need to take into consideration the inflation. How do we do that? So if we look at what the price was in 2017 on the investment, it was 130. So now what we can say is using bonds as a baseline to our economy, 130 is now the equivalent of 104. So really, you only made 30 million profit, but that's 30 million profit on top of protecting yourself of the additional 26 million of inflation that you would have lost. So this is why I'm saying you're not going to make an insane amount of money. It's a couple dollars here and there, but it's keeping your account and your any liquid GP that you have, keeping it protected. If you would have kept this 104 million in liquid gold, you would have come out at a loss. And you can see this year over year. Using these two numbers as our ability to go, you're making anywhere from, 30 to 20 to 50 million in that one weird year. And this is our outlier. It was 2019 was our outlier. So you can see with the deflation in 2020, we're using bonds there, we're actually getting more of an investment because we've beaten out inflation. Investment's worth more now. So with all that being said, buy bonds. Don't buy bonds now, because I'm going to actually get into the conversation of what is the best time to buy. So through the data, we have windows. From the buy point, anywhere from March to May has consistently been the lowest months for bonds. Out of 7 years, 4 of those have always been in April. What I'm going to say is an opinion based on the data that I can see, anywhere from April 2nd to April 18th is going to be the low point. Now we've seen some in mid to late May. Recently, this could be shifting, and that's why I'm saying from March to May, keep your eye out if you want to go ahead and invest in bonds. Now, from a selling perspective, this is even smaller of a window. Of the 7 years, 6 years, the highest point has been at the end of November. 1 year, it was actually in December. That was last year when we had the golden party hat. November 16th to November 28th, with being closer to the second half of that time band window, is probably going to be the better time to sell your bonds. It's not typically actually when the Christmas event starts. It's right before the Christmas event starts. So keep that in mind when you're looking for that peak to sell. Things are getting a little weird with bonds recently, and it might look a little concerning based on the graphs. But again, I think we've seen some extreme inflation in our economy, which is making it look like it steeps up, because we still have the consistent trend of a peak to a low to now we're rising to a peak. Don't be scared off. I think this is a great option and a great way to secure your account. Keep that liquid gold in a safe place. Tell me what you think about this method. Tell me what you've done in the past to potentially protect your wealth in the game. And other than that, I'll see you guys out there in Gillinor. Peace.